Yes.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Okay. So in the last class, we started with sexual reproduction in flowering plants, right? And before we went on to discuss flowers, we studied some concepts. Okay. So let's start with a recap. And today it's you people who have to give the recap. So who'll start? We'll start with this flowchart. Zed, would you like to? Yes. Aisha?
Okay, sir.
Okay, Zed.
Yeah.
Please. So what did we study? What did you understand from this flowchart?
We studied like first, like they are haploid cells and they are diploid cells. The haploid cells are having half number of chromosomes and diploid are having double number. Sorry, they are having n number of chromosomes and diploid is having two n double. Okay.
Haploids have
Diploid,
one copy of the genome.
one copy of this. Yeah. And diploid is having two copies of the gene.
Because
Yeah. Okay.
in plants, remember I told you plants can also be tetraploid and hexaploid.
Yeah.
If a plant is tetraploid, if all the cells are tetraploid, then basically what will be the gametes? 2n, diploid, right?
Yes.
Haploid and diploid are basically concepts where we say that haploid has one copy of the genome, diploid has two copies of the genome, triploid has three copies of the genome, tetraploid has four copies of the genome. Okay, so if you say half the number of chromosomes or twice the number of chromosomes, you first have to define what is the number of the chromosome, and in every species it is different. Okay, is that humans
Yes, sir.
46 chromosomes, for example, a fruit fly has just 4 chromosomes, so that differs from species to species. So it's better to say whatever is their number of chromosome, whatever, it's like whatever number of teeth they have, if they have one copy of their teeth, you understand? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, continue. Yes, good.
Okay, then we came to chromosome. Then chromosome maybe like autosome or they can be sex chromosome. Then in autosome, there are 22 pairs in humans. But for sex chromosome, there are only X and Y, means one pair. Okay. They may be X chromosomes or Y chromosomes. So if it is a male, so it will be X and Y. If it is a female, it will be X and X.
Yeah.
Okay. Then genes, like genes, they can be called like. Okay.
Genes are actually a part of the DNA itself, right? A region in the DNA. Yes. Remember we discussed open reading frame in the first chapter, from where gene starts and where gene ends, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
GN. Okay. So alleles are the part of gene that may be dominant
Parts of
or
genes. Allele are forms of genes,
formed by.
like alternate versions of the gene. Okay, so the same gene, which is like, let's say for the eye color, okay, can have multiple various alleles, because the gene is for eye color and it is located on a particular chromosome at a particular location, but everyone's eye color is not the same, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
It does not mean that they have different genes. The gene is same, but it has variation in itself. So the protein which is formed is slightly different, and the eye color is actually different. You understand?
Yes, sir.
In reality, there is only one protein basically that give rise to the eye color. It's just the gradient of it. What is the concentration in which it is formed? Okay. So if that protein is formed a lot, the eye color keeps on getting darker and darker. So we often think that there is a green pigment, a blue pigment, a gray pigment, a brown pigment, and a black pigment. That's not true. Okay. It's one pigment. If it is lighter, it looks like that. it gives an effect like a greenish or a bluish eye or a brownish eye. When it is very dark, it gives an appearance like a blackish eye. Okay. No eye is actually completely black. If you want to look for yourself, if you think someone has a black eye, then in front of a mirror, try to put a torchlight in that eye. Okay, in one eye, and you will look through the other eye. You will see that when you put a torchlight in your own eye, you will see that okay, it is brown actually, very very dark brown, but it is brown. So you understood, alleles
Yes.
are alternate versions or different forms of the same gene. Okay. Yes. Yes. Continue.
So alleles can be of two types, heterozygous and homozygous. Homozygous means same type of
It can be of two types, dominant and recessive.
dominant and recessive. So dominant are like which if we talk about tallness, so we can take T as capital T as the dominant, and recessive we can take
Capital T for the tall gene, small t is for the short.
T for the short.
The gene is for height. Okay, now the height can be either tall, medium, or short, right?
Yes.
Tall is capital T, small is small t. Okay, so these are two different alleles. If both the dominant and recessive alleles are present together, it is called heterozygous. Okay, because both different alleles are present together. If both the alleles which are present together are same, either a capital T or a small t, then they are called homozygous. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Continue.
Then we talked about genotype and phenotype. When we make a flow chart, like when we make a chart like of tallness from two parents, then we can take like X and Y of a male parent and X and Y of a female parent. Then if if it is a dominant, so it will come T and T, capital T and capital T. And in some cases it is T and short, capital T and a short T, and very very less chances of short T and short T.
Small t, yes.
Yeah, that is a draw.
We realize that there can be different genotypes, and two different genotypes can still give rise to one phenotype, right?
Yes.
Like in case of a, so this here, I forgot to tell you, this combination here, which is capital T, is called a homozygous tall. What it is called? The first one is called homozygous tall. You understood?
Yes.
It's also called pure tall. Why pure tall? Because both the alleles are dominant, right? So it's pure, it's tall. And this is called heterozygous tall or mixed tall. Is it clear?
Yes.
So the genotype is different. One genotype is homozygous, another genotype is heterozygous, but the phenotype is same. Both are tall. Okay, so coming to yes, continue. Finish this flowchart first. Is that?
Then they are genotype and they are phenotype. Genotype means which are like in the letters like capital T or short T, and the phenotype is like if it is a short, it is a dwarf or a tall person.
Yes, phenotype means phenology. There is a word called, write down this word in your terminology section. The word phenology is the study of characters. What is it? Study of visible characters. For any organism. So the word pheno, wherever it comes, it's related to the characters. So phenotype is the visible character. Genotype is the reason behind that character, the gene makeup. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, perfect. So now I'm coming to Aisha. Aisha, there. Would you like to tell me about the monosexual and this thing, oasis thing? What did we study? Aisha, am I audible? Yes.
Yeah. Wait.
What is
Yeah.
monosexual and bisexual?
Bisexual is like for like in bisexual both the sexes are involved, both the gametes, and in monosexual they have only one sex
Okay.
involved.
Not involved. They have only one sex, so it's a
Yeah.
feature. Okay. Involvement happens in reproduction.
Okay.
What is monoecious and dioecious?
Dioecious is um uh uh separate sex for two bodies, and monoecious is both the sex in one body.
One body. Yes, correct. Okay, now coming to the flower, I think the structure, overall structure was clear to all of you. Like both of you. Yes.
Yes, sir.
All these structures are very much clear. Their alternate names which are given in books is also clear. And we started with understanding some of them in brief, correct? And
Yes.
today
Yes.
we have to do double fertilization and stuffs. Okay. So the if your structure is clear to you, let's start with the process right away. Okay. Has Hiba joined in? No. She's also not available today. Okay. So let's move forward. So you understood basically that what are the structures, what are the reproductive structures present in a plant that help them in reproduction, correct? Now we have to study the process of reproduction, correct? So write down first thing, what we are going to do is stages of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Today we'll start with stages. Just 1 second. Yes. Stages of sexual reproduction. Basically, we are going into the process now. What are flowering plants known as? What are they called collectively?
Angiosperms.
Yes. Keep remembering these scientific names. Did you go back? I also gave you some assignments, right? To read pollination,
Yes, sir.
pollinators, double fertilization. Did you do this?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I also asked you to go and look at something else, right? What about plant kingdom, the divisions? Did you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you realize that when you studied, so some things got brushed up, right? Your concepts for plant kingdom got brushed up. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So now, assuming that you have done the homework, when we talk about angiosperms, you know that angiosperms make flowers, and that is their specific characteristic feature. So first thing so the stages of sexual reproduction are divided into 3 parts. So first stage is, as we know that plants cannot move, right? So when they cannot move, they also can, like animals. Animals can just move to their mate and transfer the gamete themselves, correct? Plants always have to depend on something. So first thing is the transfer of gametes, pollen grain, to the egg cell or to the ovule. And that process is called pollination, correct? So the first stage is pollination. Second stage is after pollination, the fertilization happens and the formation of zygote takes place. So second is formation of zygote. And third is that zygote develops into fruit and seed, correct? So third stage is seed and fruit formation. So we'll be going into the detail of all the 3 one by one. So let's first begin with pollination. Is it okay? You understood?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, what is pollination according to you? What do you know about pollination? How much do you know? Yes, Aisha.
Transfer of like pollen grain anther to stigma. Yeah? Anther.
Yes, so it's transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. Correct. Anything else you want to add, Aisha?
No.
Yes or no? Okay, so let's write it down. Write down. Pollination is the process of transferring the pollen grains, transferring the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, from the anther to the stigma, for the process of fertilization to happen. For the process of fertilization to happen, just till here. Okay. Next point, post fertilization, seeds and fruits are formed. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes.
pollination can be of different types depending on what kind of plant or flower is there in which pollination is taking place. Now, as I've told you, there can be bisexual flowers, there can also be monosexual flowers, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Now, the first type, write down types of pollination. Before going into types, what are pollinators? Pollinators.
Those like, which help in pollination,
What do we
those
call them? We call them the agents. Okay. Now, can you give me some examples for pollinators? If you understand what are
wind, water, then insects,
insects,
then birds.
wind, water, right? So do you realize that pollinators can be of like can be both living and non-living?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Huh?
So we call them biotic or abiotic pollinators. So before going into the types of pollination, write down pollinators. Write down pollinators. Write down. These are these are these are biotic and abiotic. The word biotic means the word bio means bio.
Living,
Yes. And abiotic are
non-living.
non-living. Okay, the opposite of living is non-living. You know that? It's not dead.
Yeah.
So biotic, because being dead is a feature of being living. So if anything is living, it can be dead. It's just termination of being living. It's not the opposite. You understand?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes. So we are often confused with a lot of terms thinking that they are opposites of each other, but actually they are not. They are the part of the same process. Okay. So we often believe that the opposite of love is hatred, correct? Do you think it's true in English? What is the opposite of hatred? Quick. Are you finding it out? Okay, find it out and let me know. So write down what Aisha?
Can you repeat it again? Actually, your voice was a little bit cracking.
Okay, did it break? I was asking, do you know what is the opposite of hatred? Or what is the
Hatred.
opposite of love? We think that opposite of love is hatred, right?
Yeah.
You think that is correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Go and figure out if it is correct, okay?
Right.
Opposite of love is not hatred.
Huh?
So you figure it out, okay? And let me know also. Okay, so
I think it's correct.
what?
I think it's correct.
You think
Hatred
it?
supposed to.
You think it? What?
Yeah, I think it.
It's hate. Hatred.
Yeah, you're talking about hatred, right?
Hatred. Yes. Hatred. Hatred. So we think love, the opposite of love is hatred. Correct?
Yeah.
If you don't love something, then you hate something. It's
Yeah.
not that. So figure it out, okay? Figure it out. Is hatred actually the opposite of love? Okay, and come back to me, or we'll do it in some break time. But let's complete this. Pollinators, write down. These are biotic and abiotic agents that carry the pollen grains.
Sir, is there like any difference in, uh, between like okay, like, uh,
Between what?
like I was thinking like hatred and like you told English words. No, I don't. Like it is indifference. Like we cannot differentiate between. Yeah.
Between what?
That.
Love and hatred.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can differentiate between love and hatred. What are you talking about?
No, sorry.
You clearly
I
know
think
that
there is no opposite of like love and hatred. Maybe.
there are, but it's not. We normally we are so much accustomed or acclimatized or habituated to use some things that we do not think about it twice, right? We think that the opposite of love is hatred because we always use it in all the connotations, correct?
Maybe. Yeah.
Don't hate this but love this. So we think
Yeah.
that, oh, if you are not hating, then you are loving. So it means like if it is not up, it is down. So the opposite of up is down. The opposite of love is not exact. Technically, in linguistic terms, it's not hatred. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll talk about it. But write down pollinators. These are biotic and abiotic agents that carry the pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of the other. From anther of one flower to the stigma of the other. Okay. Now in biotic agents, you can write down biotic agents are honeybee. These are the most common, most important pollinating agents. Honeybees, birds, especially small birds like sunbirds and hummingbirds. So birds, bees, snakes. Snakes are also pollinating agents. And in non-living, you can write wind, water. Yeah, wind and water.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's come to types of pollination. Now in types of pollination, can you tell me what could be the different types of pollination according to you?
Different types. Okay. Like they can be cross pollination, and if it is happening in the same plant, it can be, what we call it, interpollination.
Self-pollination.
Self-pollination.
Yes, you're right.
And
So,
cross.
yes, so basically we have in our junior classes we have read about self and cross, right? So now you have to learn the terminology also, because in entrances, if they're not going to ask you about what is self and what is cross, this is way too easy, right? So the first type of pollination is called autogamy. Autogamy. Now this word gamy will come multiple times, both in your like in language and in science, it comes often. I'm giving you one example, like syngamy is the word used in biology. Syngamy is the exact event at which syn means joining, fusing, syn. Okay. In the word sync has come from syn. So syn and gamy is again union. So syngamy means where two gametes actually are in the process of fusing. So that exact event when they are fusing into each other is called syngamy. So syngamy is a specific specific time of fertilization. You understand? So fertilization is the process where the gametes enter, they move into the female tract, then they encounter the female gamete, and then they fertilize it. You understand? In that whole process, that exact moment of touching each other, that exact moment of the gametic kiss, if we call it, that's called syngamy. Do you understand?
Yes.
So autogamy. Similarly, you must have read of a term called polygamy or monogamy, right?
Yes, sir.
Polygamy is where in cultures where more than one partners are allowed, and monogamy is only one partner is allowed, right? So there also the word gamy stands same for the union. Poly means multiple union, multiple partners. You understand?
Okay.
Yes. So the autogamy word, the word auto means
Self or
self. Yes. And the word gamy means
fusion or
union or togetherness, you can call like that. So autogamy is the pollination which is self-pollination, correct? Not
yes.
difficult to understand if you understand the word. So write down in autogamy, write down autogamy, the pollination takes place. Now there could be three scenarios. Let's first understand the scenario. The first scenario is where fertilization is happening in the same flower. You understand? If it is a bisexual flower, the same flower, the anther of the same flower is able to fertilize the pistil of the same flower, correct? Pollen grain from the anther of the same flower, like here, the example here. You see, this is a bisexual flower. So if a pollen grain comes out from here, it can just land here, right?
Yes.
Because it's of the same species, it will obviously get fertilized. So this is called autogamy. Auto means self, and the word self is used here. So when you say self-pollination and cross-pollination, we are not able to, by these terms, we are not able to tell that what is the meaning of self. Is the self word used for the flower or the plant, right? It can also happen that from one flower of the same plant to another flower of the same plant. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So there are three possibilities. So let's say this hand of mine, let me draw it. So there are three possibilities. One is, this is one plant number one, which has two flowers. Okay. Flower A and flower B, both. Pay attention. Now the first possibility is that it has stigma and anther. So the anther of the same flower can fertilize the same stigma of the same flower. So this is one scenario, correct? The other scenario is here also the plant is same. The other scenario is the anther of different flower can fertilize the anther, the stigma of different flower, but on the same plant, correct? So which one will you call self-pollination? The scenario A or scenario B? Both look like self, right? If I say the word self stands for flower, then this is also self-pollination. If I say the word self is for plant, then this is also self-pollination, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
The third scenario is where there is a different plant and it has a different flower, plant number 2, and then this anther fertilizes this plant, this flower. So between two different flowers and also between two different plants, correct?
Yeah.
There are these three scenarios, A, B, and C. Is it clear to both of you, the scenarios?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. First, autogamy. Write down autogamy is pollination taking place within the same flower. Pollination taking place within the same flower. Where same flower where the pollen grains from the anther, the pollen grains from the anther are transferred to the stigma of the same flower. So it's within the same flower. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now next is geitonogamy. 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 Now geitonogamy is the second scenario where it happens between different flowers but within the same plant. Is it clear?
Okay.
Yes. So first you have to remember autogamy within the same flower. Then there is no confusion. If it is within the same flower, it is from the anther of the same flower to the stigma of the same flower. Geitonogamy is within the same plant but between different flowers. But between different flowers. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, but on the same plant. Okay.
So it is cross pollination or self pollination?
So this is also self-pollination because technically we call it cross or self when genes are involved. So the genes are same, right? The genetic makeup is going to be same, right?
Okay.
But it becomes complex because I have already told you about grafting. Remember grafting?
Yeah.
So on grafting, we can make actually hybrids on the same plant. So there are different varieties of flowers on the same plant. And if from one anther to another stigma it is happening, it is equivalent to a cross pollination, but on the same plant. That's why this new term geitonogamy came. So it's not very simple from now onwards. So when we start studying, education is like stairs. So in your junior classes, you studied the C. There are two ways: self-pollination, cross-pollination. Be happy, score good marks, tata bye-bye. But when you came to class 12th and now you'll be appearing for entrances, you need to know that within that knowledge that you had, there are layers that you now need to uncover to compete. Okay? Yes or no? Is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So geitonogamy is within the same plant, but between different flowers. Again, a type of self-pollination, but between different flowers. So you can write here pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower on the same plant. Third type is xenogamy. The word xeno means different. So this is one pure cross, because this means between two plants. Okay. If it is clearly between two plants, we don't need to worry about the flowers. Of course, they will be different, right?
Yes.
So between two plants. But in all the cases, pollination can happen, but fertilization will only happen when they are of the same species. You understand? Pollen from any plant can just come and land on stigma of any plant. For that matter, thousands of pollens land on stigma of every flower, but only that pollen which belongs to the same species will now grow a pollen tube and go and get fertilization done. Is it clear?
Yes.
Right now we are just talking about pollination. So it's autogamy, geitonogamy, and xenogamy. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Now your homework is to find 4 examples of each. Okay?
Okay.
Write it down. So after pollination is clear. So suppose pollination happened successfully. Okay. This part I will come to later on. So let's get it down. Let's say pollination has happened. Now what is the next step? Next is formation of zygote. Write down second stage. Formation of zygote. Now coming to pollen, remember I told you that pollen, in a pollen grain there are 2 types of cells, vegetative cell and a generative cell.
Yes.
Yes, sir, Aisha. Now in pollen there is one generative cell, and then there is one vegetative cell. Okay, we also call this as tube cell, remember?
Yeah.
Now this generative cell divides into 2 and make 2 nucleus. 2 male nucleus are there. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So this division will be just mitotic. What will be this?
Mitotic.
You have to remember that in a generative cell there is a mitotic division and one divides into 2. 2 male nucleus are there. Because generative cell was haploid, so after mitosis it will still be haploid, correct? So both are haploid. 2 male nucleus, both N, right? And this vegetative cell is actually responsible for, or is important for, pollen tube formation. Okay. So this vegetative cell has fluid, plasma, right? Because it's a cell, so it will be having cytoplasm. So when the tube will be made, in that tube, this vegetative cell will just keep going in, and in that cell will be suspended male nucleus, 2 male nucleus following it. Is it clear?
Yes.
So the diagram will be like, if this is, this is a stigma, and let's say this is a pollen grain. From this pollen grain, this tube is formed. Okay, this is a pollen tube which is forming. So in this, there will be one. This is the vegetative nucleus, and behind it there will be two male nucleus following. Is it clear?
Yes.
How many nucleus in total?
Total 3 nucleus.
Yes. This is a vegetative nucleus. So in this tube, this is like how it moves down. So this part is clear to you, all of you, both of you?
Yes.
So write down. Yes, Aisha. You're saying something?
I was saying yes, sir.
Okay. So write down. After pollination, the male gamete, after pollination, the male gamete is transferred down, through the style into the ovary. Okay, through the style into the ovary. And write down the male gamete fuses with the female gamete to form a zygote. Is it clear?
Yes.
But what happens is, because there are two male nucleus, correct? You see, there are two male nucleus. So of course, one will fuse with the egg to make zygote. What will be the other do? Why are there two male nucleus in the first place? Because there is an event called double fertilization that happens in plants. Okay, especially in angios, like that happens in angiosperms. It is a feature of angiosperm. In angiosperm, two fertilization events takes place. Now to understand that, you have to first understand the embryo sac. So see here, look here, you see this ovary? Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm going to draw inside the ovary what is a embryo sac looks like. So write down structure of embryo sac. Just whatever you have written till now, halt it and write down structure of embryo sac. Just 1 second. Now, when we talk about the embryo sac, what is the embryo sac means? Bag-like structure, correct? Sac, wherever it comes, the word sac, it means the bag-like structure. Pollen sac, embryo sac, right?
Yes.
In human lungs, there are air sac, which are called alveoli, right? Now, this is embryo sac. This is the place where embryo will develop and the fertilization event, all of that will happen. Now, in plants, this embryo sac is a 7-celled 8-nucleated structure. Is it clear?
Yes.
In angiosperms. In angiosperms, write down the embryo sac is 7-celled and 8-nucleated structure, which clearly means that one cell is going to have 2 nucleus, right?
Yeah.
Now this is in the female, this is in the ovary. So in ovary, what happens is this end. So remember I told you that, again going up a bit. Yes, see here, I told you that the pollen tube comes down and do not enter from the top, which is a shorter way. It goes all the way around and enters from the bottom, right?
Yes.
And that end of the embryo sac is known as the micropilar end. So just give me 1 second. Yes. So this end from where the pollen tube comes and enters, okay, is called micropylar end. Okay, micropylar end. Let me complete first, then you make it. First, understand this whole thing. Do not copy right now. Just look at the board. Now it's called micropylar end because the word micro. Remember, I told you the word micro will always be associated to male gametes in plants. Microspore, macrospore. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we call it micropylar in a megaspore because this is from where the microspore enters, like the male gamete enters. And the other end is called chalazal ends. Chalazal end. Chalazal, chalazal end. Now inside there are 7 cells, as I told you, in this embryo sac. So 3 cells are present here, which are called antipodal cells. The word poda is for legs, right? Feet. You understand? So it is opposite to the base. That's why they're called antipodal cells. And then 3 cells are present here, in which 2 cells which are in front. So, and each cell will have 1 nucleus, right? 1 nucleus, 2 nucleus, 3 nucleus. 3 nucleus is for antipodal cells. Then 1 and 2 is for, these are called synergid cells. How many total cells till now in the embryo sac?
Antibodies, synagogues only 2.
Yes, there are 2 cells. So how many total cells and
So
total
total
nucleus?
5. Total 5.
Total 5 cells. How many total nucleus?
2 nucleus.
5 nucleus.
5 nucleus.
Each carrying 1. Then there is one special cell which is called the egg cell behind the synergid cell. Okay, I'm making it in different color because it is special. This is the actual egg cell that will fertilize with the gamete. So how many total cells and how many total nucleus?
Total 6 cells, total 6 nucleus.
Yes. Now we can only make one more cell, which is the central cell. We call it. So this is the central cell, and it is called the central cell. It is the biggest cell, and it has 2 nucleus in the center. So it is binucleated, and these 2 nucleus are called polar nuclei. Now it's plural. Polar nuclei, correct? Now there are 2 independent nucleus. So central cell is the biggest cell, and it has 2 nucleus. Okay. Yes or no?
Yes.
Hello, am I audible, Zaid?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I just a network issue. Okay, I'm audible, right? Clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so before we crop out, let me share the screen.
Sir, I was reading and so what is this like MMC and where it is present?
Yes, I'll come to that. MMC, PMC will come to that. Megaspore mother cell, right?
Yeah.
We'll come to that. But first, let's figure out the embryo sac. Okay. So can you see the
Okay.
screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So before I cropped out, I was saying, so these are the 7 cells, 3 antipodals. Okay. 1 central cell containing 2 polar nuclei, 2 synergid cell, and 1 egg cell, right? And the pollen tube or the male gamete enters from this end. So from where it enters, there is something called there's presence of some which is called filiform apparatus. So this filiform apparatus is present towards the micropylar end. It's not very important for the sac, but to understand the sac, but it can be asked as a question, so you should know it. So you can just draw some filiform apparatus. These black structures that I'm making here, right on. These are filiform apparatus, and it is present in the embryo sac towards the micropylar end. Okay. The overall structure of the embryo sac is clear to both of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is the classic 7-celled and 8 nucleated structure. Now, in this, I told you that when this tube is coming, the pollen tube comes. So, in this pollen tube, remember I told you there are 2 male nucleus following. So, 1 and 2, there are 2 male nucleus, right?
Yes, sir.
Because the generative nucleus divided, and now there are 2 male nucleus. So these 2 male nucleus divides with 2 different things, and that event is called double fertilization. The first, so I'm writing here the double fertilization event. So the first thing is in first fertilization, 1 male nucleus, okay, male nucleus fuses with the egg cell, or you can say the female gamete or the female nucleus, right? But this fusion will give rise to a zygote. Is it clear?
Yes.
Like this should be the classical, and this zygote will further give rise to embryo. So this is the actual sexual reproduction happening, correct? And remember, where is this embryo sac present? This embryo sac is present in ovule, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's present inside ovule. And I told you that ovule will become future what?
Future ovule will be like ovary will become fruit and ovule will become seed. Yeah.
Yes. So if this is going to become seed, then inside the seed will be the embryo that germinates, right? When we put the seed in the soil, the embryo germinates into a plant, correct?
Yes.
That is this embryo, which came from male nucleus and egg cell. Okay, this with one of the nucleus. Now the other nucleus, the second one, goes and and fuses with this polar nuclei. Okay. Another male nucleus fuses. Now look here, this male nucleus is haploid, correct? And the egg cell is also haploid. So the zygote will be Diploid. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And embryo will be
2 and
diploid. Yes. Now here this male nucleus is haploid, but the polar nuclei is, what is the polar nuclei?
Synagogues and antibodies. Polar nucleus, sorry, in the center,
This polar nuclei is
Yeah.
in the central cell, right? And
Yes.
how many are they? They are 2. So this is actually not single n, it is n plus n. So when this will fuse, how many total n's are fusing?
2n.
2n.
Total, yeah.
Total
3n.
3n.
Three.
So this fusion will give rise to endosperm. Endosperm is a what is endosperm? I'll tell you. Okay, but the tissue it will give rise is not a zygote but is a endosperm. Now you tell me, this endosperm will be haploid, diploid, or what?
I think diploid.
I think
Yeah, I think diploid.
no, it will be triploid. See, there are 3 n's: n of the male nucleus and n plus n of the polar nucleus. So 2n here and 1n here. Total.
3 nucleus.
So endosperm is a triploid tissue. What is it?
3n. Triploid.
Good. And how it is formed? By the fusion of a male nucleus with 2 polar nuclei. So how many total nuclei are fusing? Total nuclei fusing is,
Sir, total 3.
yes, total nuclei fusing is equal to 3. That's why this particular part of double fertilization is called triple fusion. Correct, Zaid? Remember you use this term
Yes, sir. Yes,
last
yes.
class? You understand what is a triple fusion? A triple fusion is the fusion of 2 polar nuclei with a male nucleus to give rise to a triploid tissue called endosperm. And double fertilization is where 2 different fertilization events takes place simultaneously in the embryo sac, where one male nucleus fuses with one egg cell, giving rise to a diploid zygote, which will become a diploid embryo, and other male nucleus fuses with 2 polar nuclei to give rise to a triploid endosperm. Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Crystal clear, no confusion. If it will come in, and you understood, right?
Yeah.
What is triple fusion also is clear.
Yes, sir.
So write down certain questions that may come in boards and also are important for entrances. Write down. Define, explain the 7-celled and 8 nucleated structure of an angiosperm embryo sac. First question. Okay. These are your assignments that I am giving. Okay. You have to find answers, write it down in your copy, and show it to me in the next class. Is it okay?
Okay, sir.
First question is.
Can you please repeat it again?
Yes. Explain the 7-celled and 8 nucleated structure of the angiosperm embryo sac. So you have to make this diagram and label all these parts. Okay. You do not have.
So, like it will be 7 cell, like 3 synagogues and 3 antipodals, and in the center, like 1 cell will be there, yeah, with 2 nucleus.
2 synergids,
Yeah.
3 antipodals, and 1 egg cell, not 3 synergids. 2 synergids, 1 egg cell, 3 antipodals, and 1 big central cell with polar. You do not have to draw pollen tube, just mark micropylar end, but draw filiform apparatus and everything else. Second question. What is double fertilization? Explain. Second question is, what is double fertilization? Explain. And third question, is the second written down?
Yes, sir.
Third question, What define triple fusion? Okay. Or what is triple fusion? All three questions written down. Aisha,
Yes.
Aisha.
Yes, sir.
Yes, clear. So will you write the answer on your? Will you find and write the answer on yourself?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I want to see it in the next class. Okay, Aisha.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now let's talk about endosperm before we go to zygote, because that is the third before we go to the embryo, because formation of zygote is this. Okay, you realized we are doing the second stage only. Okay, endosperm. Now this endosperm that we studied, what is this? So write down. Endosperm. It is a triploid tissue. It is a triploid tissue formed. It is a triploid tissue formed as a result of triple fusion. It is a triploid tissue formed as a result of triple fusion during the double fertilization event. During the double fertilization event, next point, it becomes the part of the seed it becomes the part of the seed and has stored food and contains stored food for the developing plant embryo. It contains stored food for the developing plant embryo.
Okay.
Next point you can write down. It contains mostly starch, protein, and other nutrients, other micronutrients. But mostly it has both two things, starch and protein. Starch is carbohydrate, correct? So it contains carbs and proteins. Is it clear? Starch and protein.
Yes.
Written, Aisha?
Yes, sir.
Endosperm is clear?
Yeah.
Now, just to tell you, if you see a seed, how many of you, so both of you have seen a gram seed? Gram, chana.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you see a chana seed, you can split it into two, right? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Let us draw this here. So it looks something like this, no? This is how a gram seed looks like.
Yeah.
And then we can split it into two, where you will see that it has two cotyledons, right? This is how it splits from the middle.
Yes, sir.
Now these two things are called cotyledon of the seed, okay, which opens. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Heat, what's stored in here is the endosperm. Okay. Now, if you do not roast this chana seed and eat, if you put it in the soil, you will see that this chana seed starts developing a sprout like this, right?
Yes.
This part becomes the plumule, which gives rise to the shoot later on. And this part is called the radicle. You all must have had sprouted chana, right?
Yes.
Gives rise to root system. Is it clear? Now this
Yes.
plumule and radicle, and this is actually the embryo. What is it? This is the developing plumule and the radicle. This is the developing embryo. Is it clear? And where it is getting nutrition from when it is growing in the initial stages, it is getting it from the stored endosperm, which is present in the cotyledons. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
What we are eating is actually the endosperm. Whenever we eat a seed, we are eating that seed for endosperm. Okay. Now there are two type of seeds. One seed which contain endosperms like starch, like rice. So these are called seeds which can open from the middle and have two cotyledons are called dicotyledonous plants. Okay. This is asked. Dicotyledonous plants with two cotyledons. Okay. Seed can be splitted. For example, your examples for here, these are gram, pea, groundnut, and pulses, right? Most of your pulses can open. Arhar, moong, all these. Not moong. But you realize, you understand beans. Beans can also open from the middle, like a kidney bean, rajma, we call it. These are all dicotyledons. Mango. You know, mango seed can also split from between. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Chiku. All these are dicots. Now there is a second type called monocot plants. Monocots.
Is it corn? Example.
Monocotyledonous plants. Yes. Tell me.
Sir, like corn, we can open like two pieces. So can we?
Rice, wheat. Mostly our cereals are monocots. Okay. Bajra, ragi. Mostly these are our cereals, right? We eat them. So our cereals are monocots. So if you see a rice seed, you cannot split it into two, right? It cannot open. It can just break, but it will not open like cotyledons, correct? It has a single cotyledon. That whole seed is one cotyledon. Correct?
Yes.
Now, rice and wheat, and these are good sources of starch, right? Because their endosperm is not utilized completely when the embryo is developing. So their seeds, like rice seed, still has lots of starch present, lots of endosperm present. But some seeds like pulses, dal is a good source of, right from the beginning in your childhood, you must have studied dal is a good form of protein, not for
Yes, sir.
carbohydrate, right? Why not carbohydrate? Why only protein? Because all the endosperm, all the starch is used when the embryo is developing, when the plant is developing. So only thing left is protein. Okay, make sense? You can write it somewhere. Is it clear?
Okay.
Yes. And about endosperm, one question that comes is, have you seen a coconut seed?
No.
Have you seen a coconut?
Yeah.
That is the seed. Where is coconut fruit?
And inside the endosperm.
No. Fruit can never be inside the endosperm. Endosperm is a part of seed. Seed has to be inside the fruit.
Hmm.
Have you seen a coconut, a green coconut? So when you see a green raw coconut, you know that green part later becomes brownish husk.
Yes.
When the coconut ripens and there is water inside. Excuse me. When the coconut is green and raw, there is water inside. Over time, that water starts solidifying. We call it malai. So if you go to a coconut vendor, you say that give me a coconut. So he asked which one, water wala ya malai wala. Do you know this? No? Yes, no? Say something.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So over time, that water which is present inside the coconut starts solidifying and becomes, so if you see the brown coconut, the ripened, that is the ripened coconut, and you break it, there'll be very less amount of water and most of white part will be there, the pulp which you eat, right? Yes, the white thing.
Yes.
You also put in sheer and kheer. What is that white part that we are eating? The edible part of coconut is what?
It is endosperm.
Exactly, that is endosperm. At one point of time, that was a liquid, right? So coconut has liquid endosperm. The only plant with liquid endosperm. And this liquid endosperm gets solidified. So the white edible part is also endosperm, but is solidified endosperm. Is it clear?
Yes.
That's why coconut water is very, very nutritious, because endosperm is a nutrition derived tissue. It was supposed to give nutrition to the embryo, but we drank it and it gave nutrition to us. So coconut has liquid endosperm and the white edible part is also endosperm. Now, if that is endosperm, which means it makes coconut the seed, right? So because endosperm has to be inside the seed, correct? So in this way, coconut itself becomes a seed. So where is the fruit? You know the husk part, the green thing,
Yes, sir.
husk, which we later on remove before we break the coconut. That husk is supposed to be the fruit. So it's a non-edible fruit. All fruits are not edible to humans, actually.
So is it made up of thalamus?
Is it made
The
up of
coating? Thalamus?
thalum?
Thalamus.
Thalamus. Oh,
Yeah, thalamus.
we'll come to thalamus in next class, because this is where I will finish this and also this one beautiful flow chart in the next class. But yes, your today's assignment is, did I ask you to read about fruits already? No. Yes. So the part thalamus. So seed I have told you, right? We will study the
Yes,
structure
sir.
of seed also. So your today's write down in class assignment. You have to read these three things. Structure of seed. This I will do in next class in detail. Very important topics that we are doing in these days. So what we did yesterday and today and what we'll do in the next class is very, very important for entrances. Next is fruit. Okay. And when you will study fruit, study what is a true fruit and what is a false fruit. Okay. These two
So
things.
apple is a false fruit?
Yes. Apple, pomegranate, mostly all your favorite fruits are false fruits. Strawberry, they're all false fruits. Jackfruit is a false fruit. Disheartened, na?
Yes.
No need to. And actually all the vegetables are fruits. We call them vegetables, but biologically they are all fruits. They develop from the ovary. I'll give you the answer. Okay, anyways. But go and read the structure of seed and fruits. True, false also, because there is time before the next class. Read what is parthenocarpic fruits. These are a different type of fruits.
So they are formed without fusion of gametes, yeah?
Yes, but how are they formed then? Entrance class.
Yeah.
If there is no fusion of gametes, how are fruits forming? And if there is no fusion of gametes, because see, fusion of gametes ensure only one thing. What they ensure? They ensure formation of seed, because seed is the next embryo, correct? It contains the next embryo. Fusion or non-fusion of gametes does not ensure fruit formation, because if you went and studied, revised the plant kingdom, the divisions, you realized that there are Plants that do not bear fruit but produce a naked seed, they are called gymnosperms. Angiosperm,
So like cashew nut. Yeah.
angiosperm and gymnosperms, correct? Like pine,
Yeah.
oak, pine, etc. So fertilization only ensures seed formation. Fruit formation can even happen without fertilization. They are parthenocarpic. But please go and read about these things, very important, and we'll discuss them in the next class. Okay. And Aisha, please convey the message to Mariam that before the next class she has to cover a lot. Please help her with that. Okay.
Yeah, okay, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Bye, sir.
See you in the next class, people. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.